Hey everybody, and welcome back to another episode of 7-Minute AE Tutorials. In this tutorial, we'll be creating a simple lower third and animating it using text animators, shape layers, and null objects. We'll go over the new After Effects 2023 track matte feature and compare that to the old way of track matting. I'll also show you how to create and use responsive keyframes, which is a very cool feature that can be used in any number of animations. We'll be using it with this lower third, but responsive keyframes are not limited to just lower thirds. Now this tutorial is longer than our usual 7 minutes because it's packed full of tips, tricks, and shortcuts. So make sure you stick around. You just may learn something. Please comment, like, share, subscribe, click the bell, and please support our channel so I can continue making these tutorials for all of you. You can donate to our channel, become a member, sign up for the power of shape layers, and get some really cool merch, as well as amazing deals from our affiliates, Envato Elements and AE Juice. Links to all of that is in the description below. You'll also find a link to the project file down there. So grab that and let's get moving. There's a lot to get through, so let's dive right in. Okay, so let's create a new composition. I'm going to call this lower third pre-comp, and 1920 by 1080, 30 frames per second, 10 seconds is okay for now, so just click OK. Grab our text tool, and let's go to our paragraph setting before we do that and make sure we are left justified. The character I'm using is Gilroy Heavy. I'll be using the Gilroy family for this, and I'm going to go ahead and just make this all caps. So I'm just going to type my name and grab my selector tool. Take this layer, Control D to duplicate it. P to bring up your position. I'm going to pull this underneath, and I'm just going to type Motion Graphics Designer. I want to go back to my character panel, and let's just make this a lot smaller. I'm going to change my font from heavy. I'm going to go to light. And I can include this font in the project files if you want your text to look just like mine. Line up my M with the E of my name. Make this a little bit smaller. Then I'm just going to adjust the tracking of my characters. It's set at 0 by default, so let's just spread this out. Now, as I'm scrubbing, I'm holding down the command button. So that way the character size adjusts a lot slower, so you can get a lot more precise with that. And now you can hold down the command button while you're doing anything. So like for position, for example, hold down command and move it, and it goes a lot slower. This is without holding down the command button, hold down the command button, and I just get a little bit more precision out of that. Now let's right click in this area that's to the left of our timeline, choose new shape layer. I'm going to move this down to the bottom, and I'm going to call this title bar. Okay, so if we open that up, we can add in a rectangle and give that rectangle a fill. Hold down the command button again, and we're going to select our motion graphics layer right here and just double click the pan around tool. Now, if you watch the anchor point, which is right here, if you hold down the command and double click the pan around tool, it pops over to the middle right here. So that's a nice shortcut. I use it all the time. Command, double click the pan around tool. Now I can select my position. I can copy that, go down to my title bar, and then paste it. I'm just going to reshape this rectangle path here. So let's unconstrain our size, just stretch this out and adjust the height of it. I'm going to also adjust the color. You can do all that stuff from here. You have all of your options under your contents tab. You can also go to your toolbar. So if you get your selector tool, you now have these options for your shape layer as long as your shape layer is selected. So I'm just going to click fill from here, and I'm going to make this maybe something like a purple, whatever color you would like for your bar to be. Okay, so now I'm going to add in another shape layer. So we'll say new shape layer. I'm going to open that up, and let's add in a path, which will enable your pen tool. Now, if you hit Command or Control R, it brings up your rulers. So I'm going to bring a ruler right above my name, bring a second one out so it goes right here to the left of this part of my name, and bring another one out so it lines up with the edge of this letter here. And I'm just going to make 2 vertices. Hit V for your selector tool, and then just snap these onto here. So now if your path is not snapping to your guides, go to View and just make sure your Snap to Guides is enabled. Add in a stroke that defaults to white. Go back to View, and I'm just going to disable Show Guides so that way that goes away. So now we need to animate this. We'll just start at the very top. Let's change this layer, and we'll say top line. So for top line, let's go to add, and let's add in a trim paths. Open that up. So we're going to set our end percentage to 0 and put a keyframe. Make sure you're at the beginning of your animation here. Go to about 1 second, increase that to 100%. Right click, keyframe assistant, easy ease in. Open up your graph editor and just pull that handle to the left. So that way we just want it to come in fast and slow down like that. Okay, now let's close that up. And I'm just going to move the motion graphics layer on top of our title bar so that way we can go down in order. So let's open up this name layer for Jeff Knight. Open up the text option and let's go to Animate and choose Position. Now I have a lot of tutorials that go over text animators, and if you use these settings I'm about to show you, it will take care of 90% of the time you need to use text animators. So let's open up our Range selector and our Advanced tab. So change your shape to ramp up. We're going to be animating it from this offset option. Now, whenever you change it to ramp up, that makes your range for offset from negative 100% to 100%. Okay, so let's set this back to 0 for now, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Here's our position setting. This is the position text animator, and I want this to come up from the bottom. So if we move this down, the thing to keep in mind is that whatever you set this position value to, this is going to tell After Effects where you want your animation to start. We move our offset to negative 100%. It's now below where we had our text originally. So let's just put a keyframe for negative 100%, go to the 1 second mark and increase this to 100%. And I'm going to leave this at characters. You can also do words or lines. For this animation, I'm going to do characters. Let me spread this out so you can see the words better. We have this ease high and ease low. So I'm going to increase ease low up to 100%. So that's basically like ease in. Think of ease low as ease in and ease high as ease out. These settings for text animators will work, I'd say 90% of the time. Just remember, change your shape to ramp up, which makes your range for offset negative 100% to 100%, and increase ease low up to 100%. Watch that play back. Now you can adjust the distance between these keyframes to your liking. So like how fast you want it or how slow. I think for this animation, 20 frames just to round it off is good. Make sure you're at this point where this second keyframe is or beyond it. And then holding down Shift and Command, press N. Makes a new mask. So Shift Command N. And if you right click on one of these vertices here, if you go to the mask option, you can see new mask is Shift Command N. So now if we watch that playback, we can see that it's just going to show up within that masked area. So if your text is starting somewhere inside the mask area, just make sure you move your position down. So if your position starts here, you just want to make sure it's outside of that mask. So that's what we have. Select Animator 1, and we're actually going to call this N. Command or Control C to copy it. If we go down to our Motion Graphic Designer text here, Command or Control V, and that will paste it. Now, the reason why we can see it down here is because we don't have a mask on there. But I'm not actually going to use a mask. Instead, I'm going to alpha matte this text to this title bar. Now, I'm in 2023, and a huge update has been added to 2023. You have pick whips here. This is your parenting pick whip. You also have a pick whip for your track mat. Now, I went over this in a previous tutorial, but in case you missed that, let's do this. You can take this pick whip and we're going to track mat down to our title bar. Our title bar disappeared because After Effects thinks you want to use that in order to make the text appear. But I want my bar to actually remain, so I'm just going to turn that layer back on. So now what we get is the text will actually show up within that title bar only. And we know this is an alpha mat. If you hover over this icon, you can see it says alpha mat selected. Click to switch to Luma Mat. And if we wanted to invert it, there's this box right here. You can click to invert the mat. If you select it and hover over it again, you can see it says mat is inverted. Click to disable. So we want an alpha mat and we do not want it inverted. So if we watch that play back again, we can see that it shows up within that bar. Now, one of the things that I mentioned with this track matting is how you can use the pick whip to track mat your motion graphics title down to your title bar. See how our title bar is underneath our motion graphics designer layer here? The way this would normally work in other versions is the title bar would need to be on top. If you have any version before 2023, this is 2022. I'm going to open up real quick. So this is kind of the same setup right here, right? So now if I take Motion Graphic Designer, I can't alpha matte this shape layer. I have to be underneath it. So now I can track matte it. It makes the shape layer disappear. And if we turn it back on, now we can't see our text. So this is a major update that's happened in 2023. You can actually alpha matte text to a shape layer, for example, and have the title bar anywhere you want. So if we go back over to 2023, we can see that Motion Graphics Designer is on top of our title bar, but it is alpha matted. So if we go back to 2022, the way you would need to get the same effect is to take off the track mat, put this underneath, then you would need to go to your effects and presets and add in a set mat, for example. You can double click that, and then you could set your mat layer 2 there. And now if you bring it position, you can see how your text will only show up within that bar. So the update in 2023 basically makes alpha and luma matting have the same ability as set mat. The whole purpose of me explaining this is just to let you know if you're following along and you're in a version before 2023, you may need to go the set mat route instead of alpha matting your text to your title bar, because you won't be able to do that in this way. You'd need to add a set mat to make your motion graphics designer text show up within this bar. Or the other option is you can do what we did on our Jeff Knight layer and just add in a mask. A lot of extraneous information, but stuff you can use in other projects. So now I also want to animate our bar. Select this title bar and then make sure that you have snapping enabled right here. Now select our pan around tool and we can just move this over to the left here and it snaps right onto this left center point on our shape layer. So again, make sure snapping is enabled to do that. S for scale, and let's unconstrain our scale. We'll put a keyframe and let's move that down to about the 1 second mark. Go back to the beginning and make our X value for scale 0. Now again, let's right click on the second keyframe, keyframe assistant, easy ease in, graph editor, and pull that handle all the way to the left. I'm going to go to about the 2 second mark and press N to loop that area and watch it play back. So if we select all of these layers and press U, we can reveal only our keyframes. So let's line up this keyframe here with our name text. So that way they're going to end at about the same time. So let's go to about maybe the 10-second point and then grab our title bar. And if you hit the left bracket, it will move the layer to where your playhead is. And then page down, maybe 1, 2, 3 frames, grab our title here, Motion Graphic Designer, left bracket to move that over. Now let's watch it play back and we see the name comes in, then the bar comes in with our title. So this is a very, very basic lower third, and this is only part of this tutorial. I also want to show you responsive keyframes. So we'll do that in just 1 second, but now we need to animate this off. Go to about the 3 second point, and let's start again from top to bottom. So open up our top line, and we animated this on with our end percentage. Now let's animate it off with start. So put a keyframe for start, shift page down twice to go forward 20 frames, increase start up to 100%. And the reason why I wanted to animate off with start is because if we watch it, it animates from left to right, and I want to animate off from left to right. So now let's right click onto this keyframe, keyframe assistant, easy ease out, and we're going to kind of give it a little bit of slowness at the beginning of the second keyframe and just easy ease in. This is personal preference. You can set these keyframes any way you'd like. I think this is a pretty good speed like this. So now let's go down to our Jeff Knight layer, and I want to open that up. And now remember, we have this animation for in, and it comes in from left to right. Okay, so now if I just grab these keyframes and I copy paste, right click keyframe assistant, time reverse, it's going to animate off from right to left. I want it to animate off from left to right. So that way it animates off in the same way that it animated in. So I don't want to just reverse that. So let's go ahead and remove these keyframes. And I'm going to select this in group and Command or Control D to duplicate. Okay, so now I can grab these keyframes, move them down. The text disappears, but that's because we have to make one change. So open up this Advanced tab and change ramp up to ramp down. Now our text comes in from left to right and it goes out from left to right. So just that one change, all I have to do is duplicate the in group, move the keyframes down, and change ramp up to ramp down. So now I want to rename this to out. Since it duplicated it and named it N2, I'm just going to change that back to in. If we select this out group right here and Command or Control C to copy, go down to our Motion Graphic Designer text, Command or Control V to paste it. And if we open that up, we can see that it pasted over our out animation, and it will animate out the same way that our name did. So from left to right. Let's go ahead and close all of this up because now I need to animate my title bar. I want to animate that off from left to right also. So it comes in left to right. And as you may have guessed, if we just do a copy, paste, and then a keyframe assistant, time reverse, it's going to animate off from right to left. So again, I don't want that. And this is a trick that you can use for other animations as well. Let's select this title bar here. We're going to right click, new, null object. If you have snapping enabled, you can actually just grab it and move it to the far right side of our title bar. Take our title bar and then parent that. So make sure you're parenting and not using the track mat pick whip, which is right here. So parent your title bar up to the null object. So now we can bring up S for scale, unconstrain those, put a keyframe for scale. I'm going to jump forward about 20 frames and now make this first value 0. Now it's going to animate off to the right. So let's right click, keyframe assistant, easy ease out, and graph editor. Again, we're going to kind of give it some slowness at the beginning. Right click the second keyframe and easy ease in. So what's happening is this. Our title bar scale is animating from left to right, as we can see, using this scale value here. Well, since we parented this up to this null, we'll call this title bar scale. If we animate our null object with it placed at the far right side of our title bar and we decrease that scale, it will animate off to the right. So this is something I do quite a bit. If I need to animate a bar in two different ways, sometimes you can just attach a null to it and then animate the null. So we watch that play back. Select these layers and hit U. So we know we want our name to go out first. Maybe go forward a little bit and then we can move these keyframes over. Okay, so I'm going to loop this area and just watch the whole thing play back. So again, just a very, very basic lower third. I also want to go over responsive keyframes. I want to go to this last keyframe here, hit N to loop our work area. Now, if you right click in this area within your work area and choose trim comp to work area, we want to trim this down so all we see is this area here. Okay, so now just make sure you're at the first keyframe here. You can either choose your asterisk button or you can go here to grab this marker. So again, either your asterisk on your number pad or add it straight from the timeline. So double click on that and we want to rename this to out. We have to give it a duration of something so that way we can pull the handles. So say maybe 10 frames. A label, let's make it yellow. And this is the big thing. You want to enable this protected region. So this is the responsive design. Click protected region, click OK. And as you can see, it brings up this shaded area here. And just pull this all the way over to the right. So that way it includes all the keyframes. So now we're going to do the same thing for our animation end. So again, I'm going to grab this marker here, pull it over to this last keyframe on our end animation, double click. I'm going to call this in. I'm going to give it a duration of 10 frames just so we have something we can grab. We'll make this, we'll say orange, and again, protected region. Okay. And now you can just drag the handle and you want to include this entire area from your first keyframe to your last keyframe. You want those to be protected regions, okay? Command or Control A to select all of these layers. I want to close them up and then I want to enable motion blur. Go up to our project panel here. Let's just drag our lower third pre-comp into a new composition. Command or Control K to bring up your settings and let's change our duration. We'll say to 14 seconds. Click OK. We zoom out a little bit. This is our pre-comp. Okay, well, what if I wanted this lower third to stay up to, say, the 6-second mark? Now, since we've protected those regions and we've enabled responsive keyframes, simply drag out the right side of this layer. As long as that area is protected, you can make this lower third any length that you want without having to duplicate layers or split layers or reverse layers or anything like that. You can spread this out as far as you want. So this is a really, really cool feature if you make lower thirds, or even if you just have any kind of animation that you need to last longer or it needs to be shorter. By pre-comping all of those layers and protecting the region for the in animation and the out animation, and then drag that into a new composition, you can drag the right side of that layer to make your animation longer or shorter. Again, this isn't just for lower thirds. You can do this for any animations. And that's the trick to responsive keyframes. I'd like to thank the good folks over at AE Juice for sponsoring this video. If you haven't checked them out at aejuice.com, I highly recommend you do just that right now. Get tons of free plugins from AE Juice that will save time while adding polish and professionalism to your projects. Get the AE Juice Starter Pack, which contains over 100 assets for your projects, including liquid and shape elements, liquid transitions, slides for your slideshows, text presets, flat icons, 2D and 3D assets, and so much more. AE Juice also offers professionally produced sound effects absolutely free. Other free plugins include a HUD package that is super cool. These elements would literally take hours to create, but with AE Juice, you get them absolutely free and they can be dropped into your project with the click of a button. Some of my personal favorite free plugins include Copy Ease, which allows you to copy the speed graph of your keyframes and paste them so you get identical keyframe speeds. I also use Shifter on a regular basis. Instead of going through the multiple steps of offsetting layers, this plugin allows you to do it with the click of a button, which saves a tremendous amount of time. In addition to these impressive free plugins, you can also purchase advanced products at more than reasonable prices. Take advantage of AE Juice's bundles. My personal recommendation is that you get the I Want It All bundle, which includes everything I just showed you. I've been approached by several sponsors and I will not promote their products unless I support them, use them, and highly recommend them. AE Juice is an amazing product and company, and in my opinion, it's a necessity for any serious motion graphic designer. aejuice.com. I hope this tutorial helped you out and that you learned something new and useful. Make sure to come back next time for another tutorial that will expand your knowledge of After Effects while also teaching you some really cool tips, tricks, and shortcuts. Please comment, like, share, and subscribe, and click the bell so you're notified every time I upload a new video. Support our channel by getting your 7-minute AE merch today at our online store. And sign up for my Udemy course, The Power of Shape Layers. It's guaranteed to make you a shape layer rockstar. The link to that course, to our 7-minute AE store, and the project files for this episode are all in the description below. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.